Hello, and welcome to the podcast about Transformers comics, toys, and everything in between. I'm Onyx Prime, and with my two co-hosts here,
Hi, I'm Computron.
Hi, I'm Kilobyte.
moving on with our comic discussion for today's episode takes us to IDW ROM vs. Transformers, and as always, spoiler warning. So if you haven't read it already, we highly recommend you go and read it and then come back and listen to the podcast. Now, onward! Both Computron and myself have read this series already, but this is Kilobyte's first time, and we are excited to hear his thoughts about it. But before we dive into that, Computron, do you mind telling us some facts about it?
Sure. So starting off with the basics, the comic was released July 19th, and its last issue was November 29th of 2017. The writer was John Barber and Christos Gage, and the artist, my favorite, Alex Milne and Josh Perez. So, down to some fun facts. In Star Drive's room, there were some trinkets and toys by her bedside table. Some of those included NX-01 and the NCC 1701 from Enterprise, the Starship Enterprise, from Star Trek, of course. And then there was the Super GoBot action figure, Zemon, and a Kabuki mask that looks kind of like Amon from the Legend of Korra. Blitzwing has a pair of goggles on his helmet that evoke the design of his animated series counterpart. It is stated in the comics, but John Barber said on Twitter that Star Drive is actually from the Cybertronian colony Magnus, which we'll kind of get into a little bit later. It kind of helps because it supports the blue Energon synthesizer color next to her recharge slab, I guess if you want to call it that. Also, Skyblast is a direct import, but upsizing of the Armada series minicon of the same name. We also see Viacon, which is another nod to the Transformers Prime series. Now, other than that, Kilobyte, do you mind giving us a short summary of these comics?
Will do. These comics center around the characters from IDW publishing Transformers titles, meeting characters from the IDW ROM series. The series takes place in the little explored post-ancient pre-modern era after the 2017 ROM annual, but before Infiltration. We follow the story of Star Drive, a new character to the Transformers world. We take a journey of self-discovery as Star Drive learns of her past and of her people. This information was taken from the wiki.
Of course, you know, it's nice to learn about her and just not see her until I don't know how long.
Oh yeah, this is the first time we see her, and then we don't see her again until like almost the very end of this entire marathon that we're in.
That's what I've heard.
Should we get started?
Yeah.
We shall.
So, to give this an idea of when this takes place a long time after Primacy, and then just before Infiltration. So it's around the 1830s and 1840s. What's your thoughts on the giant time jump, guys?
I feel like it's just something for them to kind of link to Hearts of Iron 2. I mean, it's just like, okay, we got to get the ball rolling here. We can't, spend the whole entire comic series talking about the Civil War. That's just my thoughts on it.
Hearts of Iron. Can you explain that a little bit?
The comic book Hearts of Iron, I think that takes place during the
Hearts of Steel?
Hearts of Steel, I'm sorry. Yeah, Hearts of Steel, which takes place around the same time, if I'm not mistaken, because it's about the expansion to the west of the U.S., right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not my favorite comic. Spoiler.
I think it's cool seeing how things are after kind of like the Civil War has ended a little bit and everybody's kind of like gone in different directions, trying to kind of get resources again so that they can continue. And so I like kind of deviations of just seeing war, kind of, because here we see a whole different story focused on just a couple of characters. So that's always good.
Right, and it's a small handful of characters.
Yes.
Right. So, I guess speaking of characters, this is the first time, I know I mentioned this before, the first time we see Star Drive, and the first time I saw her as well. I think she's amazing. It's a great design. It may not be the best story written for her, but I really enjoyed like her thought process and kind of like coming to understand of like I guess her background, not her background necessarily, but where she comes from. Like she's a strange being on
Like a
another
race.
planet. Yeah, on another planet, and it, I don't know. It just kind of that's the parts that are interesting to me in this story.
Yeah, no, and she's a string being in a different planet, but everybody knows about what she is and where she comes from except her.
Right.
So
Exactly.
it's more of just we know where she comes from, but she doesn't. So it's now the journey of her trying to figure out where that comes from and that realization that there's more of her out there and kind of her origins. So I think that was a fun
I kind of
journey.
yeah. I kind of like hearing all the other opinions of what all the other races thought of the Cybertronians, right?
Yeah.
Because like people, like literally everybody hates them.
Yes.
Well, they bring war everywhere.
All of them kind of didn't. Well, maybe the Galactic Order, but like not all of them thought that they were in a civil war because you remember when Ron was having like that thought process of like how can a race go into galactic travel but not first pass the step of global unification?
Right. Right. And it's kind of jarring to him, right? Because he thinks all Cybertronians are the same. He
It's
doesn't know
nice
there's
to
two
see that though,
factions.
right? Because like
Yeah.
it separates like the organic beings from the mechanical beings because it's almost like it's just something given to mechanical beings that it they would be able to explore space a little faster, right? That's to me that was interesting, like because like they had like the step process and that only worked for organics.
Yeah. Well, the Rum Knights are also part of a group where they've
Soul
been
Star
unified.
Order.
Yeah, it's an order. They've been unified for how many? I don't know how many years, but I would say millions. And so they only know like unification in a way, and so they're. I don't want to say that they don't think by themselves, but they have like a code that they follow. So I feel like they don't have a lot of say in many of the things that they do.
Yeah, kind of jumping around here. One thing that we kind of see in the comics is we kind of see that we meet the dire wraiths. I'm gonna kind of start there.
Yeah.
So when we first meet I don't say when we first meet them. When we first meet an interaction to the dire wraiths and Cybertronians, it's of course Starscream trying to make a deal with them. Well, actually, it's the other way around. It's them trying to make a deal with Starscream and trying to convince Starscream to help them, right? Because they found like one of their own kind had like some sort of energon synthesizer that could help propel the energon shortage that the Cybertronians are facing. And there's a few things we kind of need to like process here. The first thing I want to talk about is that how the dire race were showing the Cybertronians about the one Cybertronian that is still alive, working with the Soul Star Order, is they're using magics. And it just didn't seem compelling enough for the Decepticons to want that, even though the magic's kind of is just something that I guess is kind of beyond understanding or whatever. But like they're like, oh yeah, cool, you have magics, but I want that energon synthesizer. And I'm like, wait a minute here. That's not even a slight bit curious for you.
It is Starscream making this deal, to be fair. And he doesn't care about a lot of things, right? He just wants to either show he's better than the other Decepticons by getting a energon synthesizer, which like sure there's some alternatives, but it would make him that much better than everyone else if he brought one of those quote unquote home and Shockwave's still trying to develop this technology.
I mean, like, true, but like the magics is like this big ambiguous thing, right? So like, what if you
Hmm.
could have used that to make energon or whatever?
Right, no, completely.
Well, Starscream has always, well, most of the incarnations I've seen, he kind of wants the power, right? He wants to lead the Decepticons and take it away from Megatron. But getting this magic, since nobody knows what it's capable of, so it doesn't have a value, I feel like, in their eyes. So
Sure.
the Energon synthesizer, since they're running out of Energon, is more valuable than a resource that they don't understand. And so that could have been something that he just thought about as he was doing the treaty. He's like, that's interesting, but I feel like that's not gonna gain me popularity with the rest of the Decepticons, because I don't know what it's capable of. I don't know if it's even useful for what we
Sure.
want. So it's like, I'd rather have this that I can prove, hey, I'm the best. I got this and you didn't.
Right.
Than I got this random stuff that I don't know what it does.
And speaking of Starscream, throughout this comics, he is Starscream on point the whole time. Little quips here and there is just fantastic. Like, I think the first time he runs into Star Drive and one of the Dire Wraiths are saying something along the lines like, see, there's a Cybertronian over there amongst like these other aliens who, by the way, are not like very tall. And Starscream goes, is like, you know what? I can actually tell which one isn't 6 foot tall and made of flesh.
I mean, it's not just Starscream with the quips, right?
Oh,
You have
yeah.
Ultra Magnus that's pretty quippy himself.
Oh yeah, it's just packed with the good stuff.
And yeah. Um,
Well, there's a scene where Starscream helps. I think it's Ramjet and who's the other one? Blue one. Forgot his name.
Dirge?
Dirge.
Dirge.
Yeah, Ramjet
Yeah.
and Dirge. And he says, I'm always saving you guys. I wish you were like Thundercracker and Skywarp. Now those are real seekers. Pity I have to make with the B team. It's like, wow, that's rough. So,
Starscream on point the whole time.
I think with that, I was curious on what you guys' thoughts on the Ultra Magnus that we kind of see in this comic.
Yeah, the Magnus we see is, can't remember if this is the first time we're seeing him in a series or not, but he's very like strict to the rules. He's more of a shoot first, ask questions later kind of Ultra Magnus. At least that's the sense that I got from him.
Yeah, because like I feel like when we first got introduced to him, you know, he was attacking a Decepticon ship, and like, the ship got blown up, right?
Mhm.
And like I was saying earlier, like he has quips of his own. Bumblebee he tells Bumblebee to grab a gun because they're gonna go see if everyone lived through the explosion. And Bumblebee's like, why do we need guns for a rescue mission? And like his immediate response was to make sure no one lived through
Right. It's a very violent Ultra Magnus, this one.
yeah.
That's good.
Does this
Well-
sound like the same Ultra Madness from like Autocracy that was sparring with?
It kind of doesn't. It sounds like a total different one, but maybe it is.
does.
It's kind of unclear.
Yeah. This one's more of let's complete the mission, and then I don't care who gets in the way, I'll take them out. Kind
Right.
of mentality. Like he has a code, but it's like mission first, everything else later.
Kilobyte, one of your favorite all-time
Yes.
minicons
Uh,
are in
uh,
this.
yeah.
Explain a little bit of that.
Okay, so for the listeners out there, I started watching or enjoying Transformers in Armada. And the first part of Armada, it's all about Minicon of the Week. And so I fell in love with that gimmick. And I loved the Star Saber, the Wrecking Blaster, and the Skyboom Shield. And so in this comic, they have Skyblast, which is part of the Wrecking Blaster. And I'm like, yes, a Minicon! Woo! I get to see him in action. And then the next scene, he's gone. And it's like I was happy for 2 seconds, and then they took it away from me, and I'm like, this is very sad.
They didn't just take it away from you, man.
Yeah, they took it away in the most terrifying way.
Yeah.
It was great. Speaking of terrifying ways, a similar thing happens to this version of Ultra Magnus. And I am in love with the design of that transformation. What's your guys' thoughts? I think we can spoil a little bit what happened.
Should we?
I think we can with Ultra Magnus for a little bit, but not the end.
Okay. Well,
You go ahead.
well, the Ultra Magnus here gets infected I would say, by one of these dire wraiths, and so they've taken control of his body, and it's been mutated. So
Okay,
he looks very savage.
I'm gonna jump in here, like, because it is probably like one of my favorite symbols, is like the Wraith Autobot symbol that takes over Ultra Magnus's uh, symbol, and it looks cool. It looks
Oh
really
yeah.
cool to me. Like now that it's like my second time reading this, I'm like, man, I kind of need to put that symbol somewhere. Where do I want to put it?
Oh yeah, it's a cool design, and we can see this in a lot of in the future when we get to like the More Than Meets the Eye series. The Autobot symbols and Decepticon symbols will mimic the character's personality in that moment. So, like for an example, I guess Ultra Magnus is a perfect example because we see it here where he's taken over by a dire wraith, and so the insignia looks the part, right? And
Yeah.
then, like in
Exactly.
the future, we see Ultra Magnus like angry or he's concerned about something, and the expression on the badge will mimic his
His state.
personality. Yeah, his
Yeah,
state of
his
mind.
emotional state. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
kind of want to say that happens a lot in Alex Milne drawings. Like
exactly.
they'll be definitely be like a lot of expressions.
I
Like
really
just don't
enjoy
see it
that.
anywhere else, right?
Well, I feel like that it's a good way to like storytelling with the art, you know, because you see the expression on the character, but since like in this case he's been mutated by this wraith, then you see all of him mutate with so now he's his savage emotion is shown like throughout his full concept and everything. So I think that's a very good way to convey the this is no longer the Ultra Magnus you knew. This is
Right.
something completely different.
Yeah. So one thing I kind of want to touch into, and Kilo, I'm gonna take advantage of the fact that you still haven't read the whole entire comic book series yet. So, Onyx, you and I have read the series and everything, and
Hmm.
one thing that I've noticed is like later on, there's going to be a scene, and we're going to see, and I'm not going to try to add any more spoilers or say what comic it's from, but there's going to be something that looks like zombie robots. Okay, right? And I think you know what I'm talking about because it's
I
from
have a feeling.
a drawing that Alex Milne has made, and the drawing looks almost the same art style, almost completely. Yeah, it's the same art style that he uses for these dire wraith hybrid Cybertronians. And so I'm looking at that, and there's like one specific scene that's in my mind, and it's when Skyblast is taken over, and it looks like he's just lunging forward towards the reader almost, and that's almost the same posture from a comic that we're gonna see later. And I'm like, oh, this looks cool.
I know what you're talking about. It's not the zombie robots, but I'm not going to say what it is because then I'll
No, I'm
spoil
not
it.
saying I'm not saying
Yeah,
zombie robots. I'm
yeah,
describing it
yes,
essentially. Yeah.
yes. I know exactly what you're talking about. But yes, I'm excited to hear Kilo's reaction to that later.
We're
Well, stay
just giving
tuned.
him a list of stuff to keep track of.
Right, just a list, just a hard-coded list.
Every single day that we talk, it's like, oh, this is gonna happen, but we're not gonna tell you anything. I'm
It's going
like,
to be
well,
great.
yep.
Oh, I do want to backtrack because I noticed this the second time reading this. Both Starscream and this version of Ultra Magnus end up saying the same line about organic inhabitants of planets when like they're getting ready to like either wipe out the population or something. They both say they don't live very long anyway because the debate is should we wipe out the planet or should we not? And I find that very interesting that these two characters say that.
It's not just those two characters, right? It's there's another character. I forgot her name. Starts with an L. Um,
Is it one of the ROM knights or
yeah, it's one of
Soulstar
the
knights?
Soulstar Older Knights. It's the one that's constantly in argument with Rom.
Oh yes, I'm really bad with their names. They're not
Yeah,
robots, so I can't
horrible.
figure. I can't do it.
I'm trying to think of it. I can't remember at the moment.
It starts with an L. Let me.
Right. It's like Ileana or something.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, so they had the ship blow up and it's getting ready to make planetfall with infect that could possibly infect the planet with dire wraiths. I'm not gonna kind of go into too much detail. And like her immediate thought is this world must be raised. And like Ultra Magnus is like, yep, I can see her logic.
Right.
It's like, really? This dude's an Autobot?
Yeah.
Well, the whole mentality about that is the dire wraiths. Once they infect a planet, it's very hard to get rid of them because they just kind of move from one host to the other and then kind of take over the whole planet. So the only way to really get rid of a wraith is blowing it up.
Yeah, but like you would think, like if you're so used to fighting this species, like you wouldn't necessarily you would think they would be better than doing the all or nothing kind of mentality of eliminating the dire wraiths, right? Because it's like every time we see them encountering dire wraiths, like the first time we meet dire wraiths with Star Drive, and every time else, you see this person say, "Nope, we gotta raise this planet. Nope, we gotta raise this planet. Just kill them all. Kill them all. Kill them all." I'm like, okay, what's the difference between you and these dire wraiths? They're just gonna be eliminating this population anyway.
I think Star Driving points that out at some point in the comic too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's kind of like the understanding. Like she has more understanding than they do. Not understanding, but more emotional.
A little bit more compassion.
A little bit more compassion.
A little
Yes.
bit more empathy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's not a whole lot left in this comic. Kilobyte, do you have any last minute thoughts before we move to our next segment?
Two things.
Yes.
I was when I read it, there's a panel where you see like a big battle that Ultra Magnus is, I think, conveying something to Bumblebee, and so he's talking about the whole war.
Mm-hmm.
And you see Optimus and Megatron fighting, and then you see a bunch of bots around them. There's a Soundwave, one of the panels that his design looks very cool.
Ooh.
I don't know if you noticed, but he's like in the edge of the panel, so he's you don't see the whole design, but I do like how his face looks. And, the boombox speakers are on his shoulders, and they look like they have the mesh on it. But there's also another character, which I think is Tarn, which we haven't met yet. I do know about him because I've seen some figures, but I don't know his story. He does kind of look like Tarn, which I thought that was pretty cool.
Oh, you'll have to show me later. I'm curious.
Yeah, well, we'll put it on the YouTube.
We'll put it on the YouTube.
I think it's Tarn. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but his face looks like the Tarn face. Won't say much more about it. We'll cover that later.
Yeah.
And then the second thing I wanted to
just a Decepticon symbol, essentially.
yes,
Yeah.
kind of like the I was gonna say kind of like Soundwave, but yeah.
And if you get it right, you get a Rod Star.
Woo! My first Rod Star.
Well, don't celebrate yet. We gotta check.
Well, the second thing I wanted to say was Star Drive's design. I really enjoy it, and I really like it. I do like her colorings after she removes the Polaris colors, because the knights, they kind of wear like an exo suit kind of thing that goes over their body, and that's how they get their weapons and everything. So she has one of these on, and then once she removes it, she has her natural colors, which I enjoy. But I also like she's a triple changer, so she has a vehicle, a ground vehicle mode, and a aerial vehicle mode. And for those, they kind of remind me of the Galvatron from the Cybertron series.
Oh yeah.
So I think those look pretty cool.
I'm gonna differ on one part there. I like the chrome design more.
I like the chrome design more too.
I find it so plain though. I like the blues.
The blues are cool.
Like, yeah. It looks to me like, not necessarily vibrant, but how do I want to say this? The chrome and red, like it looks like the color. Well, one, it's the Soul Star Order, but like every time I read like something about ROM, the first thing I think of is that robot from the day they were stood still. It's got this really cool gray and red eye lasers. And I'm like, I really like that color combination. And like the way they displayed it on Star Drive, I really, really liked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shall we wrap it up there?
We shall.
We shall.
All right. So, on other segment where we're talking about
The in-between?
The in-betweens. So, our next episode is going to have a special guest Their name is Hexmus, and they will be doing a Q&A with us on the D&D podcast. So if you're interested in that, tune in. We'll also be reading Transformers Infiltration next. We also have some really cool news. On top of that, we'll be increasing the frequency of videos we send out. So we'll be reading each. How we want to say this, guys?
Be reading a little bit more.
We'll be covering more issues.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So stay tuned to that. Oh, we'll have our keychain giveaway winner announced next time.
Yeah,
Ooh, that's coming up June 19th.
Yes.
Follow us on Twitter at Swerve's Bar, Facebook, Swerve's Bar Podcast, and Instagram. We don't have any emails today, but if you're wanting to send us an email on like either correcting us on it or something, or tell us whatever you want, it is swervesbarpodcast@gmail.com. We also have a website, swervesbarpodcast.com, where you can stay up to date with the latest episodes or see what platforms we're on.
We also have an archive section for both our podcasts. So if you're ever feeling like you fell behind, it's a good place to start.
Yeah. And we want to send our appreciation to you guys, the listeners. Thank you for sticking around.
Thank you so much.
Who wants to send us out this time?
I went last time, but I can do it again.
I can do it. Till all are one.
Till all are one.
Till all are one.